Good afternoon, guys. Welcome back. It's a fun day. Pretty slow, right? It was pretty slow. Start the day. Uh, we finished bid 0.5% on the S&P. Nasdaq fared a little bit better with growth just continuing the move that we already sort of saw. Excuse me. Mega caps really being again the driver of everything we've seen. Apple now with another 1.25% day. Positions we've been just sitting in, and we're definitely gaining from. Amazon with another nice day, sort of coming back into the trend. Microsoft, 1%. Google looks like we're about to finally come out of this little bit of a pocket that we've had, and Facebook actually broke out of it a bit. So it looks like the two, again, Google and Facebook have been sort of a little bit further ahead, but they did slow down over the last week or so. They came up. Tesla, we're still eyeing, but in terms of the mega caps, this is definitely what drove the Nasdaq and markets on an average higher. And this was again we had Powell testifying. I mean, it was pretty silly. I mean, I always find it ironic that weren't we selling last week because we had confirmation by the Fed that the inflation is so much that we need to change interest rates, and then the market came down, and then today, not that this is the reason why the markets were going up. They've already been coming up since yesterday, but today he confirms again and reassures us, no, guys, really, inflation is really here and it's really hot. And so markets go, oh, great, let's buy tech. That makes a lot of sense. So again, none of these things really so much are reactions, and it's not as dramatic as it sort of seems when we look at, again, you look at this and you can look at intraday and go, oh yeah, as soon as we kind of got that out of the way, we kind of went bid. Kind of find it hard to believe that everyone went, oh yeah, reassuring that the inflation's here. Let's buy more tech. I don't think it's so much that. Again, we're just continuing what we were doing, which is why I talked a lot about when we talk about the other side of value and we put energy banks, that it didn't really make sense to sell so much because, again, isn't it the other way that's good? And even if you had a different argument, doesn't that still mean these are good? So again, continuing on this side, banks were a little bit slower, but you can see the trends intact. It could be some sort of blip and could pull back down, but from what we see so far, it does look like the entire market is bullish here, and I like the moves that we're seeing, at least on tickers that we're looking at, have generated a lot of velocity, and so when there is demand for something, it's bought very quickly. And so again, we looked at a lot of things this morning that were just kind of taking off, and there wasn't really much to really enter. Again, everything's kind of what we've already bought on the pullback. You can continue to buy here if need to be, with transitions, of course, but not so much that people are looking at, oh, this is a new thing I can buy. It's really just continuations. So we look at some things. Obviously, Triple D had quite the day. Uh, you know, who cares, right? Just 27%. Retail stores had a really nice day. We saw things like SPH have big moves. I saw Urban Outfitters. We saw an FL. We saw GPS. All the big names that we usually look at all had a really nice day, which I think is going to be an interesting sort of dynamic again, because we're buying tech, but then we're still buying consumer sort of staple companies that are due to inflation. Who knows why? We're just buying everything, right? Space had a really nice day. We saw this earlier, and I was really wondering if we are going to get this breakout and sort of the factor that we were looking for, because kind of last week again pulled us down a little bit, but it only sort of slowed down the momentum here, and today it kind of took off. I find it really interesting when things like this happen. Again, did not want to touch it when it was pulling back, but then you get moves like this, and this is one of those ones that no one has an answer to. It's just retail buying shit, and there's nothing here but people's thoughts, behavior, so it's all technical, and so we get something like this, and it just looks right. It looks right. It's probably not rational. That's okay, right? Either way. Continuation on just about everything. Let's take a look at some things that matter. Moderna, we see healthcare continuing up. We've talked a lot about healthcare. We're seeing specifically the bio side come back. I like these moves, so we're going to be testing the high, it looks like, tomorrow. We technically tested it today, but this sort of move, again, is such a fascinating sort of topic to discuss on some sort of large idea side of things. And so again, we push through highs once more, then you really have to start to wonder what exactly we're pricing, because all bios everywhere are just kind of getting bid. And again, this has a lot to do with the way that we're seeing FDA approvals be pushed through. I do think, again, there's still this understanding that there's going to be some sort of government sort of program that's pushing for spending, and it's going to be pushed out to these companies that can just sort of be preemptive in some nature. Who knows how these things work? But things are being speculated on that there's going to be money inflowing across, right? Roku had another great day today. So from our weekly charts, again, weekly charts have been doing really well for us. Roku has just really taken off since then. It's really hard to look at these candles actually, and it's you have to look at almost on the weekly chart, because these candles just feels like a punch every day, and it's hard to really tell how much is that when you're doing 5% over 5% a day, almost for a week now, right? These sort of things again just kind of show where we are. Where if somebody's putting orders in and they actually want to go long on something, it's just drastic. You can see it. And those are the things that we want to be a part of, right? And so we do look for when the volatility is coming out of some sort of equilibrium, those breakouts, right? And so I think it's a good example of really just a good damn chart, right? Today, the memers are back with the meme stocks. It doesn't look like much yet, but we saw the bid come through, which is, again, it been here a lot longer than I think anybody expected, longer than I expected, and they're holding value in a different way. Now, some of the meme stocks have pulled back sort of like January, but some of the larger names have held. Again, this could either be a big sort of thing or it could not, and it could just be, I guess, uh, a diamond hands sort of, not a party, but just we're all value traders of meme stocks. I don't really know what it is, and I don't think anybody that has been trading it really knows what they're doing either. And so again, I guess it could unravel at any point, but at this point, it's gaining so much sort of support and liquidity in this area that I think these things are going to be around to stay a lot longer. Sort of, I said it was going to stay around to stay, but I didn't really think it would be this stable. It's just sort of trading like the rest of the market. So I find it really interesting, and we'll just have to see. We'll have to see, and it's not giving us any volatility. Spoon says the next one is Wish. Maybe. Everything's a target when you can buy things on your phone. So otherwise, there are some other things I want to mention. Things like COVID winners. Etsy had an interesting day today. We saw that sort of pop earlier. These sort of things, again, who is this? What is this? What is the point? I don't think we really know. And it'll be interesting because a lot of these offer a lot of upside. And again, we're sort of looking at them as sort of maybe the next sort of, I guess, sector of tickers to take a stab at. Things like Chegg as well, not Zoom. Again, Zoom has already been doing better, but things like Chegg as well, right? We've now seen, okay, we did nothing, and we were waiting, and then we finally got a move. Today was nice, right? Not many. It doesn't need to be 10 points like all these other ones, right? It doesn't need to be 5%. This is already a start to something, and so looking for these maybe next plays that were connected to some of the COVID winners to continue to put points on. And again, it's more of a question of when we put so many points on during from sort of the COVID low and into the new year, it's really now a question of, was this something that can be sustained, and is this a true value? And we talked about it this morning of meme stocks are really tickers that we understand their cap size is not their true self. It's not really them. It's just an inflow sort of dilemma that's propped them up, and we understand that will probably go away. And earnings don't reflect it, right? It doesn't even make sense. But if you do it for long enough, then it becomes a real thing, something like Tesla, right? And so some of these meme stocks, I would say Zoom is a good example of one that, okay, it got way larger than it really is in terms of its cap size, and sure, people were using it, but is it really making money in the way that it's being priced? And it's still, it drove back, but it's still sticking around, right? And so that's something that, maybe it could have been a bit of a meme stock. It could have turned into one if it never came back, but it is actually, holding value. And so we look at these things that, okay, some of these tech companies actually, you know what, they might be able to hold their value and remove some of that sort of shade from really the January sort of craziness that happened. Otherwise, other tech tickers, things like Netflix came off today. Something that we've been looking for. The question again is for any charts that we see that have this lower end of the range, and we try to change it up to the upper end of the range, just a nice swing trade. It's always a question of when is that break happening, and it's very difficult to time that, and you always have to wait. And so, even if you didn't catch a candle like this today, I think you're starting to get the hints of it. And again, if we look at this, it's it's you know it's bringing forth what is this? This looks like Twitter, looks like that Etsy chart, looks like all those things that have continued to accumulate at a low, right? The other charts have broken out, right? Twitter's also broken out, but in all these charts that have this low or coming out of the low, the breakout is something great to trade. Again, even looking at like Twitter as an example, this wasn't so much of a break, but things that come into the low like this, they do come out, and it's a lot of points if you capture it, right? And so we do want to be aware that there are positions out there that you can capture. And again, we've seen this sort of accumulation everywhere. The accumulation is going to be some sort of launch pad to more higher highs. And look at the NASDAQ, look at mega caps. They're pushing through all-time highs nonstop. And look at these other charts that have coming out of lows and put points on. It doesn't really matter what the company is. The name does matter, but at some point, if everything is pushing and the average is up, then so will just be everything, right? There'll be the odd ball out that is not going to gain because of some reason. But I mean, at the end of the day, we have charts like this, like DocuSign, that again put points on during COVID. Why? Who knows? I mean, it makes sense in terms of we're all home, so we're signing documents online. But I mean, again, is it enough to give you valuation? Probably not. That's just what we did during this time. These tickers go through this phase where they just trade flat for almost 9 months or something, and then all of a sudden, again, we've had this breakout that we've been capturing, and we buy a candle like this. Again, we had a 20% day, and we said halfway through it, let's buy it, and you get moves like this, right? And that's where we are. This is really the mentality of the market right now, is this kind of shit. And this is what people are speculating on those positions that are at a low right now. They're buying them for the hopes, right? Most are for the hopes. We don't really want to buy something and hope that it goes up. We want to buy something that it's on the way there, right? And there's a reason, and we can see some signals, but at the end of the day, that's what everything in the market looks like, right? It's really hard to find things that don't give you some sort of anticipation of further highs, right? I think I'm done looking at individual tickers for now, but just looking at the market, it's really hard to not look at every single one of these pullbacks and say every single time it's being bought, there's not going to be a pullback that's not bought. Find me a pullback that's not going to be bought. It's not going to happen. And I think everyone is really getting further and further like that in the market. Again, when we look at the deepness of this pullback, but if you think about the sort of the velocity that we came out of the low and how clear it is, and no one is anxious, no one's worried about what's going on with inflation, everyone's just trading it. It's just going to be higher and higher, and that's why we continue to be pushed to position long. So there's no problems to really solve today. There was nothing from Powell that he said. It was the same old, same old. It was kind of silly, but again, the market is in agreement right now, and when the market's in agreement, we just sort of trend, and we don't stop. We have a long time, and I'll keep saying it, we have a long time until there's really going to be economic data that will be in the time that we're looking at, which is the 2022, 2023, that it's during that data that we start making marginal decisions. The Fed will go, okay, based on now that we're here, we can now look back and make a decision. Again, we're a long way, and so this is pretty much set. We're going to continue. I think the next question is going to be when we start to take profit on some of these positions that we just took for risk here. What exactly are we looking to enter with that money? That's again always the question. Do we double back into those positions? Do we add on to our mega cap positions in a long sense? Maybe we get more aggressive with the mega caps. These sort of things are climbing in. I'm not really sure. I think we just stick with sort of this pace that we're on. A lot of the time it's tied into a pullback. So we just bought on the pullback. If you remember through this area, we didn't really have much other than someone is not betting that there's going to be much higher of a high tomorrow. So then we bet on things that have very short term exposure. And so likely, again, things are starting to get more expensive when you start to look at things that are technically riskier, right? And you can see that really with the IVs. You start to see those IVs climb. Last week we had things like 30%, and now we're seeing things like 50%. So I put some bets on, for instance, today that I talked about. We went with the whole social media move. So we went with Facebook, Twitter, and Snap here, right? All had decent days. Snap didn't move, but when you look at these volatilities, they're all pricing in moves more than that we were doing before. So again, Snap didn't move, for instance, but since the volatility is high, this is going to hold into tomorrow. So that's already a different position, because usually if the IV is lower, then you're worried about tomorrow actually being down a bit because you're getting exposure to the underlying instead. So there's some very interesting, I think, things going on that I believe are going to change when we start to go further on the trend. And again, some new problem will come about, and we're going to be complaining about politics and timing about wind infrastructure. Again, I think that's still the next catalyst in terms of discussion is, okay, are we passing this thing now? How much is it going to be? Maybe it'll be less than we thought, and the market's going to go, oh no, and grumble, right? That's really when we get the ability to do things. When everyone's just buying and doing the same thing, it's kind of just, you're just throwing money at the market, right? Which is fine. But again, I do think we want to be finding things, and it may lead to, again, just taking chances more often because we don't have a downside like we maybe have on an average time, right? So even taking a trade like this here, or taking another AMD trade, right? AMD was up 1.25%. I'm okay with the trade I took. Again, I took weeklies at 85 and and over here on Snap at 65, and both of them are going to probably make money, you know, most of the time, and I'm okay with doing things like that. So again, when you get into this mood like that, it's not so much you should be doing more of that, but it's definitely, you're in a spot where I'm not really worried about it. I don't feel I don't know. I don't feel like there's this looming downside, and you have to be careful, of course. And again, long-term positions are what matter, and big, nice option positions that are stable are better. But again, it's nice to throw in weeklies that you can get some big percents, and you don't need to catch all of them. Maybe when we talk about a 3 month swing trade with options, I talk about 30% of the time I'll get 100% on that trade. If we're talking about a weekly position, that, for instance, last week, right, we had the AMD position that made 1,000%. You only need to catch one of those, what, one out of a few hundred times or something, right? So they're cheap. You can throw basically darts at a board. Hopefully you hit one. Right now is kind of the good time to be in that mood a little bit. Again, it's risky and there's a gambling part to it, you could call it, but we're trying to do it in a way that's still tied to our discipline and method. And because it's a kind of a little bit of a paint drying watching the market like today, there's nothing else to do besides chase momentum or watch your money go up in your account because you're in position. That's great, but you feel like you should be active, then that's what you have, right? That's literally what we have. Unless you find buying shares exciting or something. I mean, I'd rather just, I don't know, just quit, do nothing, right? Retire, do something else, go for a run. That'll give you some I don't know. That's what the market feels like, because again, it just feels like we all know, and we're all just babies and making up reasons for why we should sell things, buy things, but everything is going up, right? So we're not gonna change the script. In terms of tomorrow, we are going to be testing all-time highs, it looks like. The biggest question to me is not about our market, it's about China. And so we saw Europe return today, going to its highs. The biggest question is China and what the hell's going on there. And again, regulation is the biggest thing. And I don't think we have the answer to that. And so we can't really know. And so other than opening lower because China's lower or something, it shouldn't really matter, right? Shouldn't really matter. And so pushing positions is always good overnight. Otherwise, I think it was another really great day. I mean, how often do you get a day like yesterday that's followed by a day that nothing bad really happened, right? No one took profit on anything, and we just kind of continued bid. Maybe some of the meme plays that we made today. Spoon just mentioned get stopped at AMD. Those kind of things, right? Don't so much matter in the full stroke of things. Again, if you're positioned, and pretty sure everyone is in a very similar position, because what else are you going to do? I mean, if you're just watching this go by, I don't know. You're really lost. Everyone is very lost. And no one is, right. Everyone's obviously bought in the same way. It's just, you could definitely tell that there are people out there that probably are still complaining about the same things, losing money in the same way, even though it's just right in front of them, right? It's been very straightforward. So I'm not going to sit here and wet my beak on how obvious the plays have really been. So other than some of the fun ones last week, I think we had a great week last week. So um, Spoon says that it's odd. Most channels are mixed. Yeah, but again, I think the retail side is always mixed anyway, and I think it's just due to, again, ignorance. Not really. Again, it's really easy for us to, I think, sit here and look at some of these things and say, okay, I mean, maybe from hindsight, because we already were in, but we can understand why we were in because of what was to come, and we can look at things now and understand that the trend is so normal. There's nothing really special about what's happening. And it's also frustrating to be in something that's not special, because you're just buying what everyone else is buying, which is sort of the dilemma with mega caps. We have mega caps because we all have bought them throughout our lives. That's just the reality. Mutual funds keep buying them, and it's really hard to. I guess retail can find an argument for both sides of it, but at the end of the day, prices keep rising for only one reason, because demand goes up. So again, the only argument is about price. It doesn't really. I don't know. I'm sure people are mixed. I'm sure they're mixed, but I mean, that's usually people who are mixed are because they have a mix of profit and losses, right? that's usually that's usually if your money is going up and down in your account, you're usually changing your mind a lot, right? If you're disciplined and your money stays stable, or at least is going one direction, and you understand why it goes the other way, for the expense of it going up, the usually you're going to stick with your guns, right? And I think that's always a big thing. That's why I've talked about is you stick to the strategy that works, you'll become disciplined. And again, I mean, we've done, for as long as you guys have been here, you see we've done the exact same thing every fucking day. Charts are the exact same thing every day. If I didn't put a name on them, they'd all look the same, right? And because it works, right? It's because it works. It says they're still on crypto, just telling themselves a lot of stories from the news. Theory of crafting. That makes sense. I can understand that. I've tried. I've tried reading Twitter lately. It's hard. C-Trace says it's up 1,000% in the last 5 years. Exactly. That's also, you know what? That's actually the funniest part. That's actually a good point. Is like, even when we talk about any of the meme stocks, they're up thousands of percent, and they're still complaining that they're not going up more, or they're being held back. And it's like, yeah, they're literally up 1,000%. That's like the crazy thing about Bitcoin, and why it's also, I didn't really have an argument about it, but actually it's a good point about Bitcoin. Is it's that cult feeling, or that feeling of being on a team. So it's like with sports, if you have a team and you just all of a sudden argue with everyone else about theirs, or you're mad about it. I think that's that mentality that some of those people have. It's the team. I bought, again, a lot of us here bought Bitcoin. I bought it back in the summer, right, of last year, and then I sold at 55. And since I have a bearish outlook on Bitcoin, I now was never long on Bitcoin, and it never went up all that all that percent, and it's like I never made that money. And I think again, it's that like you have to stick with it sort of thing, but you should never stick with things as a trader or something. Like, it's just so strange. I don't know. Gotta check myself with finding self-reinforcing stories to justify purchases. Bitcoin up 5,000% in 5 years. The S&P is up 100%. Not comparable, in my opinion. I agree, they're not comparable. And that's probably not a good rationale for why you're making bad decisions with Bitcoin right now. And it's exactly the point of being able to change your mind, which is why being able to change your mind on something and like realize what's actually happening will always make you more profitable. Because imagine if I sat here, right, and I stuck to the 100,000 Bitcoin thing, and we all just lost $23,000 on top of what we had, right? I would not be able to do that. I could not sit here and tell myself that I was in hindsight, right? If right now was in hindsight, I could not say to all you guys that it's a good decision to hold from where we were. And so it's like there is something though that people can't, they just can't take it out of their head that you can rebuy. If you sell up here, you can rebuy down here. And that's the gain. People always forget that this is the point that you gain from not losing this and rebuying. And when you go past it again, that's the gain. So you get the 1,000% from before, and then you get to gain this entire part. And I think people feel like you have to hold. It's just like with, I think in here we've had a few people that have done that. I think all of us have done it, obviously, where you buy something and then you never stopped out of it, you never sold it, and you just feel like you need to, it's yours. You have to protect it. And if I'm either going to make money on it or I lose it all. That's such a bad mentality. And I think that's the crypto problem is, even though crypto haven't really gone to zero or anything, I think there's only been one, right, that's completely been wiped out before, like minus 100%. But that's like where they're headed because they're not willing to, you're not willing to just change, learn something different, do something different. It'd be interesting. I mean, I believe in the whole concept, but again, I'm here to make money, not fucking join a cult and jerk each other off and tell each other stories of the war stories of, I don't know, the dips and how they're actually good. And you lie to yourself and you have to convince yourself to hold something longer. It's like, well, you know what? It's fine because I'll just hold it for a year longer and that'll be fine. It's like, well, what about that whole year? That whole year you're eating fucking ramen because you haven't taken the money out. Yeah, and then then it's like a new rally cry. It's like, well, you didn't hold, you're a pussy. Like, and then you feel like, well, now, damn, all my buddies are fucking holding, I better hold. Like, gambling is a bad habit. That's a bad start. And it's usually, you know what the worst part about the other groups as well is everyone has different amounts of money, and it's one thing for one person to do something, but someone else that is not financially stable probably is the one actually getting hurt because again, some people can afford it. It's not a big deal. Screw it. I got time. But again, it's hard to tell. You never know how some people's opinions come from being poor. Some people's opinions come from being rich. It's never really easy to tell. I think they're all just on the same team though. They're all Yankees fans. Or what are they? They're Boston fans. Everyone's a Boston fan in crypto. Red Sox, yeah. They're all Red Sox fans easily all from Boston. Everyone that talks to me that is just won't shut up about crypto, I just imagine they're a Red Sox fan. All right, boys. We don't have much else. Again, wasn't much today. I think there was plenty of things to make money on, and I'm happy about a lot of our positions, and I do think that things just are in an interesting one, and so we'll see tomorrow. I'm hoping for some more, a little bit more excitement. I think the all-time high dance will be a little bit better, so open will be a little bit more interesting. We'll have some topics to talk about, so also some charts I can update from what we saw today. So enjoy your night, guys, your evening, wherever you are, and I'll see you guys in the morning.